What does it mean to be conscious? This is one of the most intriguing and challenging questions in philosophy. Today, we're going to explore what consciousness is, how it relates to our subjective experience, and how great thinkers throughout history have approached this topic. We'll dive into discussions about dualism, materialism, and contemporary theories of mind, all in an effort to understand what truly makes us who we are. Consciousness and subjective experience are at the core of some of the deepest mysteries in both philosophy and science. They refer to our ability to have subjective experiences, the quality of being aware, of feeling, of perceiving the world and ourselves. In the philosophy of mind, this topic is central and has been the focus of debates for centuries. From the time of René Descartes to contemporary theories, consciousness has been studied from various philosophical perspectives. Even though science has made significant progress in understanding the brain, there remains a profound mystery about how and why certain brain activities result in conscious experiences. Consciousness can be defined as the capacity to perceive and experience the world around us. It's what allows us to feel, think, and be aware of ourselves and our environment. An important concept here is that of qualia, which refers to the qualitative properties of our experiences. For instance, the redness of red, the taste of chocolate, or the pain of a needle prick. These qualitative aspects are central to understanding conscious experience. Subjective experience is the internal, personal experience of consciousness. It's the what it's like for you to be conscious, something only you can experience. This is the point many find most challenging in the science of mind. How can we scientifically understand and explain something so intrinsically personal and inaccessible to others? This is the enigma that fuels intense debates in philosophy and cognitive sciences. In the 17th century, René Descartes proposed what is known as Cartesian dualism, the idea that the mind and body are two distinct substances. According to Descartes, the body is a physical machine operating in the material world, while the mind is a non-physical, thinking substance responsible for consciousness and subjective experiences. This dualist view raises profound questions, such as, how does the mind interact with the physical body? If the mind is immaterial, how does it influence or get influenced by physical processes in the brain? The main criticism of dualism is the difficulty in explaining this interaction. Advances in neuroscience have shown that mental states are closely linked to brain states, suggesting an interdependence that dualism struggles to accommodate. In contrast to dualism, materialism proposes that everything that exists is material or physical and that the mind, including consciousness, is a product of brain processes. In this view, subjective experience emerges from brain activity. For example, when we see the color red, that experience is simply the result of a particular configuration of neurons firing in response to visual stimuli. Physicalism, a form of materialism, suggests that all mental properties can be explained in terms of physical properties. John Searle, for instance, argues that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain. It's not something separate from the physical world, but a characteristic of certain complex material systems, like the human brain. However, materialism faces significant challenges, especially concerning the so-called hard problem of consciousness, as formulated by David Chalmers. This problem asks, how and why do physical processes in the brain give rise to subjective experiences? Materialism can explain behavior and cognitive processes, but the question of why these processes are accompanied by conscious experience remains an enigma. Materialism holds that everything that exists is material or physical. Within this view, the mind is not a separate entity but a product of the brain. Physicalism, a form of materialism, claims that mental states are identical to brain states. In other words, feelings, thoughts, and perceptions are just physical processes happening in the brain. This approach dominates modern neuroscience but faces the challenge of explaining subjective experience in purely physical terms. Panpsychism offers a more radical perspective. consciousness is a fundamental property of matter, present in some form in everything that exists. Rather than being a phenomenon exclusive to complex organisms, consciousness would be a basic feature of reality, like mass or electric charge. This view has gained recent interest, especially among philosophers and scientists dissatisfied with traditional explanations of consciousness. Panpsychism attempts to address the hard problem of consciousness by suggesting that consciousness doesn't merely emerge from complexity but is present in some degree from the beginning. Philosophers like Galileo Galilei supported an early form of panpsychism, and more recently, David Chalmers and Philip Goff have revived this idea as a way to overcome the impasses of dualism and materialism. Phenomenology, a philosophical tradition founded by Edmund Husserl in the early 20th century, offers an approach that focuses on the direct description of conscious experience. Rather than trying to explain consciousness in terms of substances or functions, phenomenology is concerned with understanding how things appear in experience. Maurice Merleau-Ponty, one of the leading phenomenologists, emphasized that consciousness is always connected to the body. We are embodied beings who experience the world through our corporeality. It was further developed by Martin Heidegger, who offers a different approach, focusing directly on conscious experience itself. Phenomenology doesn't concern itself so much with explaining consciousness in terms of underlying mechanisms but with describing how consciousness presents itself to the subject. For example, Husserl argues that consciousness is always intentional, meaning it is always directed at something, whether an external object or an internal state. For phenomenology, subjective experience is not just a byproduct of brain activity, it is fundamental to our understanding of ourselves and the world. Heidegger, on the other hand, emphasizes the relationship of consciousness with being in the world, highlighting that our conscious experience is always situated in a context of meaning and purpose, in continuous interaction with the world around us. Phenomenology challenges Cartesian dualism by asserting that mind and body are not separate but interconnected. Our perception of the world is mediated by the body, and we cannot understand consciousness without considering this relationship. For example, the way we perceive space, time, and even other people is closely tied to our bodily experience. This contrasts with materialist views that tend to reduce conscious experience to neurological processes. Phenomenology also criticizes dualism for creating an artificial separation between mind and body, ignoring the unity of conscious experience. At the same time, it challenges materialism by taking into account the complexity and richness of subjective experience. Consciousness, in the phenomenological view, cannot be fully explained by physical processes or merely by describing cognitive functions. It is a lived reality, filled with meanings that emerge in interaction with the world. Functionalism is a contemporary theory that arises in response to the limitations of both dualism and strict materialism. It suggests that what matters for the mind is not the substance it's made of but the function its states perform. In other words, the mind can be compared to software that can be implemented on different types of hardware. This perspective suggests that if we could replicate the functionality of the brain in another substrate, like a computer, we could also replicate consciousness. A critique of functionalism is the issue of qualia, the subjective qualities of experience. Functionalism explains how a machine might process information, but it doesn't directly address how that information becomes subjective experience. The discussion about consciousness and subjective experience remains one of the most fascinating and complex topics in philosophy. From the Cartesian separation of mind and body to modern theories of functionalism and panpsychism, each approach offers valuable insights but also faces unique challenges. What is clear is that consciousness, especially subjective experience, cannot be easily explained or reduced to a single theory. Perhaps, as some of these theories suggest, the mind is a key to understanding not just our existence but the fundamental nature of reality itself. This was today's reflection. Leave your comments below, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Keep philosophizing, and I'll see you in the next video. And remember, it's not enough to acquire wisdom, you must use it.